Guys, I'm coming on here to give you a little tour of my life. Not that anybody cares enough, but I'm going to try it anyway. So we have two grown boys. One is 13 and one is 18. One has special needs. The other one is, but he's being treated. I'm just a mom with two dogs and two boys who is a hairstylist and a mom of autism and living a normal life that I thought maybe you guys would want to see what we go through on a normal day. So today's episode, I'm just going to let you know a little bit about my life and a little bit about myself. We are very untypical, I think, as far as it comes to how we do things in our home, how we raise our kids, how we treat our people. But we are also normal as well. I mean, I know that doesn't make sense, but I feel like some people get ideas of what it's like to be an autistic mom or an autistic parent in general, and they get an idea of what maybe we should or shouldn't do. And a lot of the YouTube channels, although they've helped me many times over the years, just kind of watching things and seeing how things go, getting good ideas and stuff, it's also very like edited. And I feel in general, when you edit things like that, you're not getting like the full picture. So I thought maybe if I could make some videos to explain how we live like in a quote unquote normal life as an autistic parents, or just everyday regular family. I mean, I hate putting the fact that we have an autistic child in there as a label of who we are as a family. But I mean, I'm not going to lie, the way we run things has to be a little different just because of who we have in our family and how they respond to things. My husband and I also have different parenting views, different parenting tips. So I think that more families, more often than not, have parenting tips that are different from each other. You try to work together and try to not be against each other and try to make things a little bit more, easy on each other. But in the end, it's your core beliefs, and sometimes they clash. More often than not, they clash. So, I thought that I would give you guys a little taste of what that kind of looks like in our home. We are, so my son, the youngest, I'm going to talk a little bit extra about autism today just to get that out of the way. Just so you understand where we come from, how we do things, why we do the things we do. And the fact that we're just flawed in general. I mean, I'm flawed. My husband's flawed. My boys are flawed. My dogs are very flawed. So, I am a hairstylist. My husband is a supervisor at a warehouse. And so pretty normal people, not anything high tech. We are certainly not made of money. I'm not even going to go there. We are a type of people who like to do things with our family. We have had our ups and downs with learning how to deal with special needs. We did not know that Rowan was autistic right away. We found out he was autistic actually only about a year ago. So, Rowan's main issues, I mean, if I look back at it and I really want to pinpoint things or nitpick at things, I could tell that there were some things different about him. He would have like this random, just out of the norm screen fits. And it was like, why is he crying? And he'd laugh and cry in a blink of an eye. He's just eating his food and then just throws his food for no reason. And we didn't understand really what that was. We just assumed he was just kind of like, I don't know what. You can't even say a toddler because he wasn't a toddler. He was just a 6-month-old baby that was kind of having like a little bit of a temper tantrum. So we weren't sure exactly what that was. Try to figure out what kind of problems he was having. His main problems in life really came around the age of, I would say, I think it was like 8 is when we started having our main problems. He started doing things that were typically not obviously normal. I mean, he had his meltdowns, he had his normal problems that we would have any other time, but he would have these. He started fires. He was inappropriate with things. He would talk about suicide. He would talk about just things that weren't typically normal for like an 8-year-old. And so we started getting him evaluated, not for autism, because we didn't know that was what it was, but for other things, like what's going on. We knew he was ADHD. That was clear. He was ADHD from the time he was, I mean, obviously born, but I mean, we noticed symptoms of ADHD from like, I would say 3. I know it's hard to say because a lot of times you look at a child who's 3 and you're like, he's not or I keep saying autistic. He's not ADHD. He's just a wild kid. You know, he needs to have discipline, or he needs to this, or he needs to that. But having an older son who was already 5 at that time, when Aiden, I'm sorry, would have been like, he was already like 7 at that time. We knew what to look for an ADHD. And I used to take Rowan, obviously, to Aiden's appointments. And I remember his psychiatrist, Aiden's psychiatrist, looking at me a couple times, and, you know, Rowan's just wild, you know, at 3 years old, 4 years old. And he's like, yeah, I see a future patient here. Like he kind of already knew. We already knew. So we knew he had ADHD very early. OCD came very quickly after that. After he had learned, like, there was a lot of things that he would do that were just like, I don't understand why you're making a big deal out of this. You know, going down the steps, he had to do it first. He had to be the one to shut the light off. He had to be the one to put his toys in order. He had to be the one to, I can't even remember, just a lot of things like that. And then along with that comes the anxiety of things. You know, he would think about these like obsessive thoughts, things that were happening that, oh my God, this is going to happen. And he just obsess over it. And so that came with that right after, I would say maybe like within like age 6 that started. And then we got to about age 8, and that was when he started with the fire setting and the explosive meltdowns. And I'm talking violent meltdowns. Dangerous. I mean, he could be dangerous to himself or myself. You know, you just would scream and cry for hours at a time, and we just didn't understand what was going on. He's verbal. He's not a non-verbal autistic. He is verbal. He is, I would consider him a high functioning, I think, autistic child. He has, he can talk normal. He can make eye contact. He's, every autistic child is different. That's why it's called the spectrum. And there's so much one way or another about certain kids. They don't all have the same traits. It was about this time where he was starting to, he had a few friends, not very many, because any parent who knows a child with ADHD, it's hard for them to have friends too, because kids don't understand why this kid is so wild. Why can't this kid sit still? Why can't this kid listen to the teacher? Why can't this kid leave my stuff alone? Why is he just doing because they're so impulsive? So, he didn't have a whole lot of friends for that anyway, because he was like weird or whatever. But he definitely lost more friends at around 8. He would get more, he was just getting a little more difficult to handle as even a friend. So he had a group. He had 2 specific girls that were his good friends for a while. You grow up though, and those friends change. He has another friend who is also on the spectrum, and they get along very well in some ways, and in some ways they're awful. And they fight because they're so different, because they're both autistic and they both have their things. They're set in their certain ways. And then they realize like, oh, they can't comprehend how to not be upset with another child for doing things that aren't their way or whatever. So they clashed a lot. But they're also another friendship that kind of dwindles here and there. They're still friends in school, but they're not anywhere near as close as they used to be, which is a sad part of being a mom. with children with any kind of special needs at all. You want them to fit in, you want them to have friends, you want them to do things, but it doesn't always happen. And unfortunately, we've seen that from there. But anyway, back to what we were saying. We had gotten him back into the psychiatrist to talk about some of the behavioral problems we're having. He was also starting to wet the bed and things like that. Of course, I'm going to sound terrible here. I'm a true crime, murder mystery, like, fanatic. And that's another thing I'll be talking about on this channel too. I mean, I love talking about all sorts of different things. So, but I immediately was like, oh my God, he's a fire setter. He's a bedwetter. I mean, that's like 2 of the 3 trifectas of like serial killer stuff. Oh my God, I sound terrible, but it's true. That's what they say. And so my first thought was like, oh my God, I have to get this kid evaluated. And you hear these serial killer stories and they say that the parent never, took them for treatment or never cared enough about what they were. And I was like, I'm not going to be that parent. I'm not going to be that parent. I don't want to be some parent of a serial killer that they were like, oh, well, the parents, they should have, anyway. He's not a serial killer. That's not the case, obviously. But he, they said that he has it's a mood disorder, and it's called DMDD. It stands for disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. It's very similar to bipolar. He has very high ups, very low lows. And he also has Tourette's. He doesn't have the verbal type of Tourette's that you hear of, and I know there's a name for it. I know it starts with a C, and I butcher it every time. It's like copralia or something. I don't know. I butchered it. I know it's not right. I'll put it up on the screen, but he does not have that one where he curses or says inappropriate things. I know that movies and TV shows show a lot of that, and they make light of it, and I'm not gonna lie, it's funny. I think it's hilarious. Maybe not so much if it was my child. I probably wouldn't find it as hilarious. And I'm sympathetic to that. But from an outsider's point of view, I don't have that. However, I do, he does have Tourette's where he has verbal. And when I say verbal, it's more vocal. It's like they're louder noises. They have to consider them louder noises where they're not just a something you don't hear. You hear something out of them. You just don't hear words or sentences or phrases. It's more of a grunt or a throat tick, or they're called ticks, these things that they do. But he also has physical ones where he does things with his body, actually. You might see people like throw their head back like this, or they might clap, or they might move an elbow, or these are involuntary movements of the body or involuntary vocal movements of the throat or something. These are the things that he has, and he has both of those. So it's full blown Tourette syndrome. He does things also that they hurt him, and I feel so bad for him, because he just, I mean, honestly, it's really rough for him. It really is rough. Well, fast forward, I always knew there was something else there. Like, I just kept thinking, why does he have so many of these different diagnoses? Things that, I feel like he gets one thing and then he gets another and then he gets another, or he gives this medication to help this and then it gives him something else. And that is the case. And unfortunately, that is the case a lot. And I hear about this a lot. Other people talk about, I give my kid this medication, now he has a side effect. Now he's on this medication for this side effect. And I had went through that in my past too. Part of the things I'll be talking about is I had cancer at one point. So I had been through a lot of medication, and it was like I would take one medication, I'd get a side effect on it, and I'd take another medication, I'd get a side effect off that. It was like I'd take a medication to fix the side effect, and I'd get a different side effect. So that being said, that's what was happening with Rowan, and I knew that it wasn't something that wasn't happening to him. It was definitely happening to him, and it needed to be fixed. And I was for a very long time an advocate not for medication for either of my children. And this was prior to having children, obviously. I said, I'm not going to medicate my kids. They are who they are, and that's it. Well, then I had Aiden, and well, all that had changed. Aiden ended up having a lot of problems in school. He was expelled from the bus in kindergarten. He was getting, detention and things like that you wouldn't typically see a kindergartner get. But he was getting them because he could not sit still. He could not be impulsive. He could not be kind of violent. Well, not kind of. He was violent. He got kicked out of two different daycares because he would get so wild and crazy and couldn't sit still. And my husband actually had gave the daycare a suggestion. He was like, let's put him in the older kids class. And this is before kindergarten even. This is in like when he was in like preschool type. And they were like, we can't do that. We can't put him in an older kids class. You know, he's only 3 or 4. And my husband's like, put him in like a 5 or 6 or 7-year-old classes. And he's like, just try it. You know, one time he does something painful or mean, or he bites or he kicks or whatever, they're going to give it back to him and he's not going to like it. Maybe that'll fix it. So they did. They put him in an older class. And I think it was the first day. My husband gets a phone call at work. You're going to have to come pick up Aiden. He hit a child over the head with a chair. It was just to the point where I was so beyond like, what is going on? I had brought it up to the pediatrician. The pediatrician's like, yeah, it does sound like ADHD to me. I want you to get a paper filled out by the school. I want, you to fill out this paper. It's an assessment to where you knock off certain things on the paper that say he does this or he doesn't do that. And it's an assessment for ADHD. So, the paper was clearly, it was almost all filled with the columns that you would check for yes on, he does do these things and it is an ADHD trait. So the event, it took, unfortunately, like it is for a lot of people. And I know this is something, I went through it with both of my children and it's unfortunate. The system is just so far backed up. You have years, sometimes even longer waits to get in to see children, get your children to see like a child psychiatrist or anyone who would be willing to help your child with whatever therapy, or if you chose medication, whatever the situation was. But anyway, we went in to see the psychiatrist after a year of waiting. And Aiden's kindergarten teacher retired after him. Anyway, so the doctor was like, he's definitely ADHD. He took one look at him, made him sit down on a chair. It just watched him for about 15 minutes. And he's like, no, there's no doubt in my mind this child is ADHD. So we gave him, he wanted to give him medication. And I was like, nope, I'm not giving him medication. And he's like, I have to tell you, I feel like, he asked me why, and I gave him my reasons and stuff like that. And then, he was like, can you imagine putting yourself in your son's shoes for a minute and ask yourself if you think it would be fair for someone to not give you medication that you would need for something vital in your life. Maybe it would be diabetes or high blood pressure, just because they don't feel that medication should be put. You should be doing other natural things, or you should be changing diets, which we did. We did a lot of those things. And I was like, wow, I get that, but I was still like hesitant. So he gave me like 6 months to think about it. And he said, think about it this way, think about it that way. He kind of pushed for the medication, and I kind of pushed back because I thought, no, you just honestly want to give my child medication because you're a psychiatrist and you get money off of people who, whatever medications you push, which I don't know if that's true or not. It's a misconception if it isn't true, and I apologize for any psychiatrists out there if it's not true. That's what we think happens, though, as like non-professional therapists or psychiatrists, that's what a lot of us parents think. Like, that's why you want to give them medicine, or anybody medicine for that matter, any doctor. But after, I thought about it for a while, he's like, it's short term. You don't have to keep it on. If you give it to him, you don't like it, we just don't give it to him anymore. But I promise you that you're going to see results in him that are going to be insane. He's like, you are really thinking about it from the point of view as if you could imagine if you were Aiden and you didn't have friends and you didn't have, you were getting yelled at all the time and you were getting reprimanded and punished and for things that you have zero control over. Imagine how he must feel. So after thinking about it for a little, I decided to try it. It was a little bit of like horse around kind of with what medication we're going to give him. But then when we gave it to him and it worked, the right medication, oh my God, the difference in this child. It was like a totally different child. And, he had blossomed after giving him that medication. So yeah, we we started medication. He did well, and I was then a believer. That it was night and day difference for my child. Night and day difference in his personality even. Like, he just was a different kid. He was like wild and crazy before, but you could tell he was like unhappy and just like, why am I always getting yelled at type of a thing. And then it was, okay, I have friends and I can do this and I can do that. And it was a different thing for him. So when we thought about with Rowan, I almost immediately knew that I was going to give him medication for ADHD. We gave him the medication. We changed medications. When he was 8, we gave him other medication for this mood disorder. And I'm telling you, from age 8 to age 11 was the worst time in our lives. I mean, Rowan could not, honestly, he'd be good on a medication for like 6 months and it would not work at all. I mean, we'd up it and up it and up it, and it just wasn't, it would work for like a month, and then it wouldn't, and we'd up it again, work for a month, and it got to the point where, the longest it worked was like a year, and then it just started slowly getting shorter and shorter and shorter as it started working. We've been through every possible medication you could think of. I'm not kidding you when I tell you every possible medication. My psychiatrist was at the point where he was just like, I don't really know what we're going to give him at this point. I don't know what we could do to help this child. He had seen therapists. He was seeing an in-school therapist. He was seeing a out-of-the-house therapist. We had therapy come to our home for like an extensive program, family-based program, where they came for 8 months, 2 hours a day, 3 days a week, sometimes 2. It was extensive. And, a lot of things work and some don't, But I, in my heart of heart, kind of had a feeling that Rowan had more to it than just the diagnoses that he has. And, the thing is I'm not saying he has the inappropriate diagnoses, because that's not the case. I feel he has the right diagnoses, and he had the right diagnoses all along. But I also see like why they call autism spectrum is because there's so many broad things that can happen as a person who has autism. Not everyone has Tourette's. Not everyone has a mood disorder. Not everyone has OCD, or not everybody has these explosive. Most children with autism, though, do have these explosive meltdowns, but they don't. Like Rowan can make eye contact for a good period of time. He doesn't have speech delays to the point where he speaks too fast sometimes and it comes out as a mumble jumble, but you just have to kind of tell him like, hey, slow down. What were you trying to say to me? And then he'll say it slower and more audible, but he doesn't have that. Now, he does have learning disabilities. He's in special classes. He's in special education, where he also has a one-on-one that is with him through his classes to help him through. So he does have the learning disability part of it. Not all the children do have that. Um, and the school he's in is phenomenal. He has an IEP. They follow it to a T. They do really well with him. He loves school, which is a huge plus. And you know, that's something I'm very grateful for. I'm very grateful for the fact that we have what we have. However, we did end up getting him evaluated for the autism just because I had therapists that were seeing him say, you ever thought about maybe possibly him having autism, which was already in the back of my head, just knowing some people with autism or children with autism, and I'd look and I'd be like, Rowan has those same things. Rowan does those same things, or wow, I wonder why, he does that, and I always thought that was not normal for Rowan. You know what I mean? And so like I said, in the back of my head had the autism in there anyway, but then I was, like I said, having therapists tell me and specialists in autism telling me, this looks like an autism trait. That sounds like an autism trait. Have you thought about getting him evaluated? Things like that. Multiple people were telling me. So eventually I got him evaluated, and then sure enough, he has autism. And I'll tell you, it was like a huge weight lifted off of me. I was like, wow, oh my God. Finally, we got what we got. We got the diagnosis that makes sense. We got the autism umbrella, like I like to think, and then everything underneath it. Or sometimes I see in these some of these like different groups and stuff, and they'll show it as a iceberg, where you see the autism on the top of the water. That's the top, and then underneath, and icebergs are much bigger underneath, and underneath it, the water is where all these other traits come from, all these different kind of diagnoses that possibly autism could possibly have. And that made sense to me, so I'm not saying his diagnoses are wrong. I just think all of those diagnoses are there, but they're there under that autism spectrum disorder altogether, which causes those things. So, yeah, I don't know. I kind of got off topic a little, not really off topic. I'm explaining where Rowan got what he got and how he got to where he got. It's just been so good. So we are at a totally different spot in our life right now. But he's doing great, and I'm so blessed and so thankful, and I thank God every day for what he's given us. I mean, as a family in general, we have been through a lot more than a typical family. We've had a lot of ups and downs, some very personal things that I don't know, I'm definitely not ready to tell you guys about yet. And we've, we went through my cancer scare with the treatments, and that was a whole year of my life that was completely, we just had a lot of things go on in our life that doesn't typically happen in other families. My husband had multiple strokes, and we just, and then, children with a child with ADHD and a child with autism and all that entails. And so we're normal. We're normal people. We're unedited. You may not agree with our parenting skills. You may not agree with how we deal with certain things. My husband and I have separate views on how to deal with things. My husband and I do not handle Rowan the same way. My view may not be what others agree with. His view may not be what others agree with. But that's why I'm here, because I want to explain to people that not everybody parents the same way. I'm not saying you're wrong, and I'm not saying I'm right, and I'm not saying my husband's wrong or right. I'm just saying this is how we do things. And I'd like to show you how we live in our life. It's not always going to be about autism. It's not always going to be about ADHD, or even my kids for that matter. I might come up with, I want to talk to you about a news headline that I might think is interesting, or, get your point of views on it. Or I might talk to you about, a murder mystery or a true crime topic that came up that I really, really want to talk about. I might want to show you some sort of crafting. I'm very much into crafting. I do a lot of things like that are interesting. I make t-shirts and keychains and badge reels and tumblers, and I'm just like it's a hobby, more of a hobby, and I enjoy it on occasions. I do hair and I love doing hair, so I may show you some hair things. We're just a normal family who lives a normal life, who are flawed, and I want other people to relate to that. If you're not interested in being kind and making nice comments, or if you're not interested in the way I parent or my husband parents, or how we raise our family or our dogs, or our political views, or the way we do things, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I offend you, and perhaps maybe this is not the channel for you. But all the others, moms out there who are struggling to be normal and want to see things people do that, hey, listen, she's flawed too. Cool. I don't feel so bad. Or dads for that matter. Maybe you're a dad out there that the mom, your wife or girlfriend or whatever, doesn't share the same view as you, and you don't understand it, or you think she's wrong. Hey, well, maybe you can get a few tips from us as a normal family. I will put a disclaimer out there. I will try my very best not to curse. I curse. It's a problem of mine. My husband curses worse than me, though, and I will have to put a damper on him because he's very quick with the F word. I'm not so much that bad, but you will get the 4-letter words out of me every now and again. H, the S, the D, the 3-letter word that starts with an A. Those kinds of things. You'll hear those out of me. So if you don't want your children to watch any of this, although I don't know how many children are going to be watching my life as a mom, or my husband's life as a dad, or what we like, that kind of, true crime, there's going to be some graphic things there. I don't know that everybody's going to want to watch that. But I look forward to having people watch my content and see if I can just help you in any way. And if I can help you just be like, wow, my life ain't as bad as hers. She's going, whatever. Hey, whatever. If I help you because I'm like crazier than you, cool. That's awesome. I'm also going to be going through gastric bypass surgery. So, that will be something that I will follow, let you see my journey in that. And, I'll show you the ins and outs and the goods and the bads of that. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of both. So, that's exciting to me. And, hey, I hope you follow me. I hope you subscribe. I hope you like my page. And I look forward to giving you videos as often as possible. I don't know that it'll be daily, but it might be like 3 times a week. I'll be trying to do that. And, I look forward to seeing you guys follow me, and hopefully that I can just put a smile on your face, or at least make you feel a little better about being like a flawed person like everyone else. I hope you have a great day. I hope you enjoy your day, and I hope you feel blessed, and you just smile. Be kind to people. Okay? Great. Have a great day, guys. Take care.